Next presentation is a presentation by the Citrus Heights Water District regarding proposed water rate adjustments.
So I've been following you and/or others around. I've seen this presentation many times. But I will thank you for going out to the neighborhood associations and making this presentation. So, not to steal your thunder, but basically, it's about potential rate hikes. So we've asked them to come here and explain it to all of you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Slowey and members of the council and City Manager Boyd and city staff, and importantly, our customers. I'm Hillary Strauss, a proud city alum and general manager of your neighborhood Citrus Heights Water District. And I'm also pleased to make a few introductions before I provide a presentation to you and to the community. We have our board president, Carol Sheehan, here, along with our board vice president, Ray Reilly, and we have our engineering manager and district engineer, Missy Pieri, this evening. And they're all available to answer any questions at the end of our presentation. So with that, I'm going to partner here with Amy on the slide presentation. It is the mission of our Citrus Heights Water District to furnish a dependable supply of safe, quality water delivered to its customers in an efficient, responsive, and affordable manner. And we'll talk a little bit about the affordability in this presentation. For the audience, for those of you who are not very well acquainted with our service territory, what we did is we superimposed the city boundaries on this map in black with our service territory in blue. And as you can see, we overlap the city by roughly 2/3, 3/4, and then we stretch a little bit east, picking up portions of the Orangevale community, a little piece in the southeast there of Fair Oaks, and then the very far southwest of Carmichael. It's about a 12 square mile service territory with 65,000 residents and about 20,000 customer accounts. And we have a 3-member elected board of directors that come from geographically different areas within the district, which we call divisions, but they are voted on at large. A little bit about our budget process. It's similar in steps to your budget process in some ways, and in some ways it's different. But importantly, we're on a calendar budget year. We're not on a July 1 to June 30th fiscal year, and we've been in existence since 1920. So I'm not sure how it began that way, but that is the way we do it. And so we begin our budget process just like you with strategic planning, where our elected board and our leadership team gets together and we look at 3-year goals and 1-year objectives, and then we prepare a budget based upon those board-directed goals and objectives. And we do make it a priority, and we're so fortunate to have the neighborhood associations throughout our service territory to get out and to meet with our customer base and to talk a little bit about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and to talk about operational and financial issues. And so we've been doing a lot of that during the month of October, and this is really, for us, a capstone of our tour through the neighborhood associations, service clubs, and the community. And all of this will culminate in a public hearing at November 8th at Rush Park, where the board will consider a proposed 2018 expenditure plan, revenue plan, and rate program. So again, we begin our process just like you do with strategic planning, a best practice, and then we again prepare a budget based upon those strategic planning goals. We have several annual capital improvement program goals in our 3-year capital improvement program area. We also have an important advanced planning study that we're going to be working on this year to plan out the future of the district with regard to water mains. We call that Project 2030, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in this presentation. We also have a series of water efficiency goals, particularly centered around how we're going to plan out and deploy the next generation of meters using smart meter technology to give you, the customer, real-time data and to provide us with a lot more back office tools to help manage customer accounts. We also have a water supply goal, which is centered around our groundwater program, which we'll touch on in a little bit. And we have some internal organizational goals to help promote efficiency. Normally, we don't talk about state legislation, but this year we feel that we must. And we have shared this with our customer base as we've gone through the neighborhood association meetings as well. As we round into 2018, this will be Governor Brown's last full legislative year before he retires. And he has a series of priorities. One of the priorities is he would like to promote the concept of conservation, water conservation, as a way of life. While we certainly and the water community certainly promotes the idea of water efficiency, we have significant concerns about these bills. AB 1668 and its companion bill in the Senate, SB 606, collectively the conservation bills. These bills were on a freight train to be approved through the budget trailer process this last year, where it wouldn't even go through the normal policy committee process. And again, while they were well-intentioned, the devil was in the detail. These bills would result in a significant loss of local control to your locally elected officials. It would take away our ability to establish consumption targets at the water district level and give that power over to unelected bureaucrats in the Water Resources Control Board. It is a very, very bad idea. It will blow a hole into our financial planning, as about a third of our revenue is volumetric, that is to say, based upon how much you use in the way of water. So we do long-term financial planning just like you do, and we assume certain levels of customer usage in that long-term financial plan. The power that would be given to the state unelected Water Resources Control Board staff to establish consumption targets in out years in our modeling could blow a hole into our budget. It is a very, very big concern for really all of us, including many cities who have in-house water utilities. So we are really trying to educate folks about these bills, and we need your help. We need the League of California Cities to help us. I really appreciate all the effort that the Sacramento Regional Water Authority, under the leadership of John Woodling and our legislative program, Adam Robin, have really put a lot of effort into helping to shape these bills, but a lot more work is going to be needed in the coming year. And we also are very grateful to Assemblymember Ken Cooley, who met with us late in the legislative season. We really felt that he heard our concerns, and he played a major role in helping to turn these at least into two-year bills. And we hope that he'll stay the course with us in the coming year. The other bill that's of concern is called SB 623, which is a water tax bill. In effect, that would put a tax on all of our water bills, regardless of who the water provider is. All that money would go into a state-directed pot to be used for low-income and indigent water districts and water providers. We certainly, again, support the goals, but we will now be in direct competition with the state for state-directed priorities for ratepayer dollars. So these are two very bad bills, and we need your help. We need the League's help as well. So a little bit more about our budget. So just like the city has a long-term cash flow model to help you plan out your annual budgeting, we too have a cash flow model. It's a 10-year cash flow model. We call it a rate model. And there are significant building blocks that we utilize to help put that financial plan and our annual budgeting together. Those green boxes up at the top left represent our revenues. You can see we have a heavy, heavy reliance on ratepayer dollars. That's very typical for a water utility of our type. And then to a much lesser extent, we have collection of fees and penalties and grants. On the expense side, it's very noteworthy to share that about 90% of the water that we provide to you, the customer, is treated and purchased water, surface water, from our neighboring wholesale water agency, San Juan Water District. So that represents about a little more than 16% of our overall expense. And then I would like to point out to our customers that for every dollar that you spend with your water district, less than a quarter goes to overhead. So we work very, very hard to keep those overhead costs low. We only have 32 employees total to help provide the services that we provide to our 20,000 customer accounts. And we have really kept our costs down over time. And our single largest expense, we're proud to say, is our capital improvement program. That's our reinvestment into the infrastructure that we build and operate and maintain to provide safe, reliable drinking water to our customers. I'd also like to point out that as part of the proposed 2018 expenditure plan, we're very proud that nearly 10% of our expenditures are planning to go into designated reserves so that we can build up those cash reserves and for those rainy days and for those long-term expensive projects that we know are coming to minimize the use of debt. So a little bit more about that 16% of our budget, the San Juan Wholesale Water District. Regrettably, they don't have the kind of designated reserves that we are working towards. And they have some very large capital improvement projects on the near horizon, including most notably the recovering of a large staging reservoir that they have adjacent to Folsom Lake on their Corporation Yard property called Hinkle Reservoir. It's about a $24 million expenditure that they're looking at in roughly 2019. And so they're going to have to debt finance these projects, which, as you all know, will double the cost of these projects. It will take some control away from their governing board in terms of rates, because they'll have to meet those bond covenant requirements in terms of ratio of revenue over debt, and there'll be large bond issuance costs as well. So those costs will be rolling down the hill to us, and regrettably, we cannot absorb what we're looking at is roughly about a 50% rate hike over between 2017 and 2021. That would erode our financial base. But we are doing what we can to mitigate those costs for the customer. But we do need to highlight that that is a major cost driver for us. So briefly about our capital improvement program. So while we plan ahead for the future, and we're going to highlight two very important advanced planning studies, we continue to move forward and implement our existing program that stems from a master plan that was prepared in 1999, and then we update it each year. And we're looking this year at about nearly $4 million of capital improvements in our service territory. Next year, $2.24 million. And importantly, we keep dollars in our budget each year that are allocated for partnership projects with the city, because we work very closely with you to ensure that when you need us to move some facilities that are in your right-of-way, or we can plan together to implement projects, we do that, and we are then flexible and agile, and we can move around our priorities to fit with you. And that helps everybody save time, save money. We don't want to see situations where you're paving over projects and then we have to come up and rip up that pavement. So that is what this is all about, is coordinating together and working very closely in partnership. And then this map just represents the 2017 projects in green and the 2018 capital improvement projects in red. So we have pretty wide coverage throughout our service territory. A little bit more about our water supply. As I mentioned, about 90% of it does come from the treated surface water, but we continue to have a very, very significant commitment to an advancement of groundwater, and we're very, very lucky here. We have a lot of bad water around us, McClellan, areas around the rail yard, the Aerojet plume to the south, but we're in a sweet spot right here. And so we have very good water quality and very good groundwater right here in this area. And so we have 6 high-capacity groundwater wells. We're currently moving forward to acquire a 7th piece of property for a 7th well, and we're already on the hunt for an 8th. So we believe hydrologically we can go to 10. And while that wouldn't make us fully independent of surface water, it certainly gives us choices. And as those price points per unit continue to go up for surface water, there may come a day when it makes more sense for us to use more groundwater and blend that in. So we're putting ourselves in a good spot. So we're also planning for tomorrow's water district. And you have to do that early. And we see a tidal wave of water mains that are going to be coming our way to have to be replaced beginning in 2030. Most of this area urbanized in the period between 1960 and 1985. So as those water mains come to age 70 in 2030, that's sort of a number that we use for the replacement of water mains, we're going to see a tidal wave begin of water main replacements beginning in 2030 and then carrying forward. That being the case, we're having these very meaningful and important discussions in 2017, 2018 about how we phase out, cost out, and fund the replacement of those water mains. Do we pay cash? Do we pay as we go? Do we debt finance? Or do we do a blended approach of pay as you go and debt finance? And these are such large decisions in terms of their policy implications, their project implications, their financial implications. We thought it was really important to take a page right out of the city's book when you looked at that very important decision about how to form a law enforcement department or whether or not you should. We too are going to have a customer advisory committee, a CAC, a focus group of customers to help us plan the future. And so we're looking at a 17-member customer advisory committee. Missy has some applications tonight that's available on our website, and we have an application period that's open through November the 13th. We really would like our customers to be involved in helping to plan the future, to work with an engineering team and a financial planning team that we brought on board to work on our Project 2030, and to look at all the different options and ultimately to help make a policy recommendation to the board. We're also doing the same with our district-wide meters, because as we look at our second generation of meters, we're on our first, we'll be looking at new technology platforms, and this will also be a very large cost item, and we need to figure out how we, again, phase out, cost out, and fund the replacement of water meters. One of the things that we are doing to try to get down the cost of the water meter replacement is we're reaching out to our neighboring water districts to see if we can partner with them and form a consortium and see if we can become a much larger customer. Because if you're a larger customer, you can get that unit cost down. And I ask myself, and we all ask ourselves, why are we all using different meters? We don't have to. So this has been great. San Juan Water District, Sacramento Suburban Water District, and Orangevale Water Company have come to the table with us, and so we're working in a consortium. But we'll also have the Customer Advisory Committee take a look at these options as well with us. So as we look ahead to 2018, again, we do the same kind of financial planning that you, the city, do, and we are looking at a very nominal rate adjustment for the coming year. We recognize that rate adjustments of any kind are never easy, but it's the old adage, we can adjust them a little bit now, or we can wait and kick the can down the road and have to adjust them a lot more later. And that's a problem in being reactive, and we would like to remain proactive. Okay, what this means in terms of the rate adjustment this year is about $1.68 for the typical customer, family of 4 with a 1-inch meter. So where does that put us in the region? The regional average for Sacramento of about 18 surveyed agencies, water providers, is the blue line, where the orange line and the blue dot represents where this adjustment would take us. So it would be still slightly below the regional average. We will have a public hearing where the board will consider these adjustments, whether you support or if you do not support this rate adjustment. You are certainly welcome to join us on Wednesday, November 8th at the Rush Park Community Center in the Sunrise Patio Room. We have much more information available at our website, and we do have a Facebook wall with information. Lastly, and most importantly, I would like to reemphasize this Customer Advisory Committee that will help us to plan the future of the water district. This is an opportunity for you to help us, and if you're interested in local leadership, to really dip your toe in the water, if you will, with us, and to learn more about how our water district works and to help plan our future. So again, we have hard copies of applications here. We have copies of the application that can be filled out online, and we look forward to receiving lots of applications so we can get to the opportunity to work with our customer base. And with that, Board President Sheehan, Vice President Reilly, myself, and District Engineer Pierre are here if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hillary. Any questions? One, I'm sorry.
Is the $1.68 per month or per bill?
Per month. And the bills are
Every other month.
every other month.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question. I recall a conversation I had with someone not too long ago that suggested that the amount of the rate you pay to San Juan Water District is determined by prior year usage. Is there any, am I remembering this incorrectly, or is it flat, or how does that work?
It's based partly on fixed charges and partly on volumetric as to how current the usage is. I would need to research that, but it is fairly current usage or recent usage, and it is a combination, as we said, of about 65% fixed, 35% volumetric.
Okay, and so does that fluctuate every month or every year, or?
Well, it would fluctuate based on a variety of factors, including our volumetric usage, but also the rates themselves continue to adjust upward on both sides of the rate to account for their financial planning and their upcoming capital improvement and debt servicing costs.
Okay, so let me ask it differently, because I'm not getting my question answered, and that is, you adjust your rates to us pretty much on an annual basis or thereabouts, okay? Maybe not every year, hopefully, but you don't do it more than once a year,
Correct.
that I recall.
That's right.
So then, is that also the case with San Juan Water District to you as their retailer? Do they adjust what they charge you on an annual basis?
Yes,
That's-
typically that's what we see.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one last quick question.
Please.
Is there any process, or are we looking at anything in terms of using reclaimed, non-potable water resources for landscaping and other uses to kind of take the load off the domestic use?
Yeah, this region has been a little slower at that because our unit costs have been so low that the return on the investment has not been there, such as in Southern California. So you see a lot of that in Southern California. I believe the El Dorado Irrigation District has been utilizing that source of that source of water. San Juan and we have not. But again, what we're looking at to diversify our water supply is the groundwater. That's really the key asset that we're investing in. And each of those wells runs about $3 million in investment when you consider land acquisition, design, and construction. We will continue to look at other water sources as well, such as reclaimed water, as the opportunity and as partnerships come together through RWA and others where we could use grant dollars to look at those types of sources, but they're not in the immediate future.
Okay, I raise the question only because if you're going to be planning out for 2030 and starting all the repiping and the other processes, would it not be at least something to look at in terms of the potential of using that and, again, cutting back the demand on our potable water resources?
Well, as we get into the weeds with our Project 2030 Advanced Planning Study, that certainly could be a consideration. We'll be looking at all the practical options, but we also have to weigh those against what is the return on the investment and what's the practical, financial and operational solution. But we certainly won't preclude those options.
Thank you.
Follow-up question, and that is in regard to surface water versus groundwater. Citrus Heights Water District has had a pretty good reputation as far as good, clean water that's drinkable, and it's surface water. And groundwater, as provided by other water companies, water service purveyors, has a distinctly different taste in part because of the mineral content and so forth. So as you go forward with your planning for using groundwater, are you considering using it as a primary source of water or as a backup source of water if surface water does not, has a drought year, as an example?
Sure. Well, the short answer is as we continue to look at different issues pertaining to price point and water supply availability, we will be making those decisions about how much groundwater to blend in with the surface water. Currently, we're at a 90-10 split. During the very low point of the drought, we could have made our water customers whole and not had to reduce usage, but we were told by the state of California we couldn't use all of our assets.
Right.
And ironically, many of those groundwater wells that we wanted to use were in part funded with state funding, state grant funding. So it was ironic that we couldn't make our customers whole, but we would have blended in more groundwater at that time had we been able to. And we do treat the groundwater, but it is very good water quality. You're right, it does have a different taste, and so that would be a piece that we would, if we had to use more groundwater, that we would have to really give some consideration to. But it is very good water, good quality water.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions on this side? All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Hillary.
very much.
Hillary?
Thanks, Hillary.
All right, next item, Council.